Hey Anya, happy February. It is 5:26 p.m. as I start this on on January 31st. I don't really anticipate being able to finish any books tonight, so I figured it would be safe to record. But that does also mean that the sun is quickly setting. I do not have any lights on in my home as of right now, so we're gonna have to do this quickly because I have like 20 minutes before I have to turn a light on, and I don't think that that will look good. So, fingers crossed that this goes quickly and I don't make a bunch of mistakes. So, I do want to start posting videos more regularly, but I'm not going to do that unless I have like a plan and a schedule and like a list of dates and what I'm going to post on those dates and everything like that. So, we're starting that journey with a January wrap up. I read 8 books in January, so let's go through them chronologically. Okay, so on January 1st, I finished The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Um, I tried really hard not to like this, if I'm going to be so honest. I really put my critical thinking cap on, kind of. I was listening to it really fast, but like, I put my critical thinking cap on as much as I could between the hours of January or December 31st and January 1st. Um, and despite my best cynical side eye, the 40-year-old men may be cooked on this one. This one was really good. I had a lot of fun listening to this book. Um, Basically, a Harvard professor, like the setup for this book, right, is a Harvard professor is in Paris. He is giving a talk on his like fake area of study that Dan Brown made up, and he gets called in by the authorities to help solve a murder. Not even solve a murder, but like there's like things going on and they're like, oh, this guy might know. So they like call him in, they're like asking him questions and he's like, ooh, and then he answers questions. And from there, a bunch of crazy stuff happens. I can't say anything else because literally everything that happens in this book is a spoiler. But it was a really good time. I do recommend reading it. It was really fun. Yeah, despite the fact that this book was published in 2003, like I literally can't say anything about it because like I didn't know anything about it. I'm pretty good at avoiding spoilers though, so like I don't know. There's something to do with Da Vinci. I literally can't say anything else. So yeah, but do recommend. It was really fun. My next book that I read, I finished on January 2nd. I had nothing to do during the first week of the year, clearly. I read Earl's Trip. This story is about three best friends who are all Earls, and they're taking a 2 week trip to just like a random mansion that they like rent for 2 weeks, as they do every year. But at the beginning of this trip, some drama happens, and they are unexpectedly joined by two sisters. And our like main character, our main male character, is one of the Earls, and he ends up falling in love. This is a romance. It's a childhood friends to lovers Regency romance. And I'm not always the biggest fan of friends to lovers. I think it like can be really good, but like when it's not good, it's creepy. So I'm just always wary when like that's the trope that's presented to me. But childhood friends to lovers, girl, I eat that up. I eat that up. It's so good. So I had a great time. Um, it was a really sweet story about um about this romance obviously, but it also had a lot of themes of like friendship, not just between the two like childhood best friends, right? It was like the friendship between the three Earls is so moving, and then like the relationship development between the two sisters was so good. Like it was all just so good. It had a lot of themes of like self-determination and like what it means to like be in a bad situation and like struggle with the family that you're born into, but still love them, but also like make a found family for yourself. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. Guys, it was so good. Um, I loved it. I'm really excited for the rest of the series. It's the first book in an interconnected standalone series, and the rest of them have not been published yet. This one was published like last April or something like that. I have a script, which is weird. So I'm trying to reference that. So if this looks weird, it's me looking down at the script because I don't have like a place to put it. Sorry. Oh, also, this book does so our male main character is a primary caregiver to his mother who is suffering with Alzheimer's or dementia, one like something along those lines. It's obviously the Regency era, so they're not using that kind of language, but um yeah, it's sad. It's sad. She doesn't die or anything. Like she lives, but like there are depictions of that on page, which were really moving. Um, but yeah, fair warning. On January 10th, Tone Shift, I read King of Wrath by Anna Huang. This was a reread. I'm really glad that I reread this because I'm a big Anna Huang fan because okay, some people say that Anna Huang writes dark romances. Other people say she doesn't. I'm of the opinion that no, she does not. She does not write dark romances. What she does write are super high drama romances, like CW high drama, like ABC, like primetime television high drama with thriller elements and like kidnappings and like the like bad boy, like corporate bad boy, MMCs, like they're kind of morally gray, but like dark romance is maybe taking it too far, but like it's wild, which is what's fun about it. And honestly, I really liked King of Wrath when I first read it. Like it's a really fun time. It's exactly what I want in a romance novel, which is I don't care about the romance. Some crazy stuff is happening behind the scenes, and that's what I think is fun. So, like I'm really glad I reread this because the Kings of Sin series, which this is the first book of, the like middle books have just kind of been like not that wild. They've just been kind of like regular billionaire romances, which is kind of not my thing. So I'm really glad I read this because the next one that's coming out, King of Envy, I think is moving back to like sort of like the twisted series energy that this book has, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I read it again to get me excited for King of Envy because I'm so excited for King of Envy. I'll tell you that right now. The next book I finished was Filthy Rich Vampires 3 Queens. I finished this on December. I finished this on January 13th. This book is so bad. This series is so bad. Let me just read what I have to say because if I don't read it, it's going to be this is not going to be a fun time for either. This is going to be so long for no reason and it just doesn't need to be. So, yeah. This book was 320 plus ish pages of ways that this book could have started, and Geneva Lee telling us that there was a secret and then not telling us what it was. Like that was the whole book. Um, yeah. So most of my ramp, I'm gonna spoil the secret. So if you don't want to hear it, or if you don't want spoilers, skip. But also like don't read this book. So you should just watch this because don't read it because don't. Yeah. So also the reason I'm gonna spoil the secret is because like it was the only thing that I liked about this book. Um, yeah, it was proof that logic was being used. Um, and that was like a really strong relief, and I really liked the feeling that that gave me. So that's what I'm going to share with you right now. So our main girl is a cello player, uh, which is introduced in the first book. This is the third book in the series. Um, so her being a cello player is such a weirdly important detail that just is never brought up. Um, and it's just so ignored throughout the whole series. But so she's a cello player, which is later revealed to be the result of her being a siren, which is later revealed to be illegal because the vampires killed them all. And the reason they did that is later revealed to be because if a siren and a vampire have a child, that child will be something different. And this is very bad news. Like this something different is very bad news. And this is scary because in a different POV, we are already told, like we already know, we have just found out that our main girl is actually the daughter of her siren mother and an evil vampire father. Crazy. So let's just take a moment. Let's take a moment of silence. And try to think of what the offspring of a siren and a vampire might be. And keep in mind that every choice so far has been so stupid and made no sense. Okay? Okay, so the answer is that she's a succubus. Do not worry, the implications of that are not explained. And we do not know whether her powers are supposed to be like relating to either of those things, if they're going to be new, if they're just like a combination and she's too never explained, not told. There is another book in the series. I'm in the middle of suffering through that. So yeah. But basically, the deep-seated relief that I felt at this revelation was so profound because like I could truly follow, okay, I'm going to be done with that. I could truly follow the logic between vampire plus siren equals succubus. Like that made sense to me. And the amount of sense that it made and the relief I felt at the fact that I was like, that's reasonable. Like that makes sense. That relief, I think, was the first instance of like Stockholm syndrome, like potentially getting me and pulling me in. And I it didn't work. Obviously, I hated this book. But like, yeah. It yeah. Anyway, so don't read this book. Don't read this series. It's not good. I started this for the bit, and I do regret that. Cannot recommend. Please don't read it. The next book I read was All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. I read it on January 19th. This book is about a woman who moves back to her hometown, a very small hometown, to take care of her uncle who is sort of like, he has dementia and it's getting to a point where he like can't take care of himself. So she moves back to take care of him, and as she does that, a little girl in like a couple towns over uh, is missing and then found dead um, in relatively similar circumstances to the murder of her childhood best friend who lived in the house across the street from her when they were 6. And this prompts her, because she is a reporter, to begin reporting on these two stories and trying to like draw connections to them. And then the rest of this thriller mystery book happens. It's um, really fun. Like I had a really good time. I was very much like on the edge of my seat the whole time. It has a really ambiguous ending, like really, really ambiguous. So like if you don't like that, maybe don't read it. Upon reflection, like it's been a week or two since I read it. I did really like it. I think it definitely got me. I was deeply surprised, but I think it was fun. Um, yeah, I recommend if you're okay with an ambiguous ending. Ashley Flowers, who wrote this book, is a true crime podcaster, and sort of her like the ethics of true crime media, like ethical versus unethical aside, um, her expertise in that area made this story like very believable and very clearly well thought out. And I think that like just sort of experience within that like world and like what cases like that look like made it possible for her to really flesh out the like world and characters that she was introducing into the story. And I thought that was really good. Like I thought that was really well done. I'm really glad she was able to do that. I think that made this story really meaningful and really impactful by the time we got to the end of it. So yeah, I recommend it, but again, ambiguous. Don't like, don't eat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. On January 24th, I read Darcy in Want of a Wife by Laura Kendig. This was a Pride and Prejudice variation where, basically for reasons, Elizabeth gets to participate in the social season and Mr. Darcy is Mr. Darcy. I had a lot of fun reading this. It's way too long. The first 30% of it is like set up for how Elizabeth gets into this season, and it really could have been a chapter and it was like 10, and it really didn't need to be. But other than that, I had a lot of fun. Any Pride and Prejudice variation where Darcy pines, Elizabeth is confused, and somebody gets kidnapped is exactly what I wanted it to be. It's exactly why I picked it up. Had a good time. Those are the things that you like in your Pride and Prejudice variations. I recommend. The next book I read was Shadows of You by Catherine Cowles. We Are Losing Light. This is a romantic suspense between a single mom and like a grumpy guy who just like doesn't fit in. It was fun. I liked it. You know, romantic suspense, somebody gets kidnapped, that's all I really want. Catherine Cowles writes the same book over and over, and like I'm obsessed with that for her. So this is the fourth book in this series, in the Lost and Found series. There's one more book that I still need to read. It's like out, it's been out for a while, but so I do plan to read that. I'm excited to read it. That being said, Catherine Cowles has a couple quirks in her writing style that are not my favorite. So after I'm done with this series, like I think I'll probably try to find a different romantic suspense author that whose writing just meshes better with my personal taste. Yeah, this book is included in a vlog that I'm currently making, and I did rant about it earlier today, this particular writing style issue that I have, so I'm not going to talk about it here. If you want to hear about it, you have to wait a couple weeks. LOL. But yeah, I just and it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's not for me. And also maybe not appropriate in the English language, but that's neither here nor there. So, whatever. So, the last book that I read was The Future King by Robin Schneider. I read it on January 28th. I audiobooked it. I used my Spotify hours for it this month, and it was delightful. This is the second book in the Emery Merlin series. So the first book is The Other Merlin, and they're great. These books are so good. Basically, Emery, our main girl, she is of the House Merlin. Like her dad is also Merlin, and she has a twin brother, and so they're all wizards. They're all like have magical powers or whatever, and her brother gets a spot at the palace to like begin training to become Camelot's next court wizard, but he is kind of dumb. Not like school dumb, just like life dumb. Like he makes dumb decisions. And so for reasons, she has to like pretend to be him and go to court because she's a girl and she's not allowed to be the next court wizard. So she goes dressed up as her brother. She cuts off all her hair, goes dressed as her brother, and she meets a very bookish Prince Arthur and becomes friends with him. She meets a guard named Lancelot, and she also befriends a visiting princess named Guinevere, and their like story begins, and it's so fun. I loved the first book when I read it last July. And I had a great time reading this book as well. It's a great second installment in the series. There's one more book that came out, I think, in August. I don't own it yet. Where are they? These are them. I don't own the third one yet because it's not out in paperback, but I do think I'm going to try to audiobook it soon. We are on the last legs of the light in here, so I'm not going to say too much more about it. Definitely recommend those books if you like YA fantasy. Pick them up. They're super cute. So yeah. Also, there's a huge amount of queer representation. It's delightful. It's delightful. It's so good. It's so good. Ugh. Ugh. So good. What a great way to end my reading for this month. Just gonna say. Okay, anyway. So that's all I really had to say. That's everything I read in January. And I'll see you soon.